Cool. Okay, guys. So we've got Truit and Craig, and then Stephanie in the background, kind of sort of joining. So we got together in person a couple weeks ago, and then we're just kind of chatting about Kingdom Treasury and decentralized finance and all that kind of stuff. And you guys glanced at the quasi white paper, if you want to call it that, and then you had questions, and I have answers, and et cetera, et cetera. So really, I just want to be able to serve you and help you with answers and that sort of stuff. So, Truitt's welcome to join in. Obviously, either of you two can speak freely. If I need to share my screen and draw something, I can, or whatever. So, okay. Yeah, I'm at your disposal.
All right. I think for me first, I love your voice and the writing, the humor, and the wit's good. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting concept for me anyway. And yeah, I love that it's Christian. We have a friend, Matt Cleveland, who's on the board, I think, at District in El Dorado Hills Church.
Okay.
I think he's talked about something similar to this, where he wants to create his own currency anyway. So, but yeah, I love the, the base case and the amount you need and calculating what you need for that to then generate at 12% APY to get there type thing. So I guess just because I didn't get further along, it's probably explained in that, so I apologize.
That's okay.
So I guess you just logistically, I take X amount of dollars and I invest it. And what happens physically to it, I guess, or flat money now going to,
That's where the Ponzi scheme comes in. No.
You already disclaimed MLM, so we're fine there.
Yeah. No, I mean, the reality is, because our brains are so wired for centralized finance, like that question is like a perfectly normal question of like, what do you mean money is quote unquote created, and how does that happen, and that sort of stuff. So similarly to the centralized finance world, that's how the decentralized finance world works, with the exception that instead of the banks and the central banks and the regional and national banks and all that sort of stuff, and the government, I hesitate to use the word control, but just being in charge of that and earning all the money from all the trading fees and all that kind of stuff, quote unquote, we the people, you and I, humankind, can now participate in that, in large part because one of the strategies, not the only strategy, but the one that kind of the base case is built around, is by us providing the liquidity, much like the bank were to be providing the liquidity. And so that's kind of like the precursor to how I would address your question. And if you do me a favor, if you could just repeat your question so that I make sure that I answer it exactly, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. So it's like any game or board games or whatever I'm going to do. I just physically kind of map it out as what's going to happen. So
sure,
I have X amount of dollars.
Yes.
What do I do next?
Got it. So so let me go ahead and share my screen, and I will find my cursor here. Here we go. Let me just get over here and sorry, I'm just opening up a document because I have kind of a template already.
So what's interesting is, and I'm blocking on the term you use, it's in Optavia. I forget what element it is, but Dr. Anderson talks about, I think it's the elasticity or whatever he terms it, but you need to pick an activity at your lowest, the one you could do 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And I like that analogy that you had, because if you pick something that you could only do, not that old, you'll never fail if you can do it every day of the year.
Yeah.
And like you said in your analogy, hey, this worked. I'm staying in it. Now I can do a little bit more. I can do a little bit a longer walk or whatever the activity is. Yeah.
'Yeah. 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 I can get into like the logistics of like, open up crypto.com account or a Coinbase account or whatever, but I don't think that's what you're asking. Like the logistics of it. I think what you're asking is like, for example, you can see my screen. Okay.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, let me try to zoom in here just a little bit. So let's see here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So let's say, again, whatever your target balance could be 10 million, it could be a million, it could be 500,000, it could be whatever, it could be 1,000. Probably if all you need is $1,000, you don't need to be in crypto type thing. Right, so, right. But like Truit, like if you were to, as I'm going to assume you're a teenager. So yeah, as a teenager, everything you quote unquote want in life as of this point in your life, like what's a rough ballpark figure? We're not going to get like linear line item by line item, but just like, I don't know, what are some things you want? Do you have a car already?
Well, so we have a minivan already.
Okay, that's a pretty cool ride to be, going around town in. Let me tell you, I've got one of those.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm a natural saver, and so I don't really have a want for a lot of things.
That's cool. That's cool. When it comes to the things that you need, do you tend to like buy the bottom of the barrel solution, kind of the middle of the road, or kind of the higher quality solution that might last longer?
Higher quality.
Higher quality. Okay, so let's just take, for example, of a car, right? So can I ask how old you are, Truit?
I'm 16.
Okay, all right. Well, you already got your license. So like what kind of car? I'm sure besides the minivan, maybe you want to make the minivan a low rider, or you want to put a lift kit on it, or you don't want a minivan, so like what kind of car do you want?
Actually, my favorite car in terms of looks is they only made 20 of them. It's the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento, and they sold there was only 20 of them, and they sold for a really expensive price, like a few $1 million. I think like 3.
Okay, so if you were to buy one of those, whatever, in whatever period of time, is it going to cost 3 million right now? Is it going to be 5 million because you got to find somebody willing to sell it? Is it?
Yeah, it's probably more than 3 million.
All right, what give me a number.
Probably we'll go with 5.
Okay, 5 million. Okay, so 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, so I got $5 million up here. Okay, so this is just to get one item, okay, because you have expensive taste now, so we're just going to stick with that. But so let's say an item that you want, your first solvable problem, so to speak, is $5 million, so that you could, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but so that you can pay for the car of your dreams. Okay. Now I say pay for, because if you had $5 million in the base case, so to speak, there are ways for you not to have to cash out the base case and end up back at zero, so to speak. So that's kind of going a couple levels deeper than where we're kind of at right this moment with you guys. But what kind of time frame, Truit, do you want? Like how many more years do you want that Lamborghini, whatever it was called?
So actually, I kind of already did this personally.
Okay.
And I have a personal goal to try and make $1 million by the time I'm 18, which is around 2 years, because I just turned 16.
Okay.
And I know that's really high, like really high APY. So yes, that's kind of like
would be. But that 1 million doesn't get you what you really want, which is the Lamborghini.
That's true.
Yeah. Now, does that 1 million get you everything else except the Lamborghini that you want?
It probably would.
Okay. So let's bump this to 6 million. Okay. So now you've got your Lamborghini and all the other items that you wanted. Okay. So, and like I have a detailed spreadsheet that literally can go line item by line item, but, and then we're talking how many, you said 2 years. Now, what kind of income do you make right now, Truit?
I currently don't have a job, but I want to get a job over the summer.
Okay. How much do you think you're going to make at that job a year?
I know the average income for my age is like 30,000 a year. So probably just 25,000 is probably on the safer side of a guess.
Okay. So was Stephanie trying to chime in?
Yeah. Oh, she's saying add tutoring in there.
Oh, add tutor. Okay. So 2 years, that's super short time frame.
Yeah, that is extremely
Yeah.
short.
Yeah, that's like painfully short. And you intend to make about 25,000 a year. So like that math is already set up to fail,
Yes.
because you don't have enough income coming in to, even if you put 100% of that in here, even if you put $50,000 over the next 2 years into here, you'd still have to contribute $116,000 a month. So you need to have a different job, is what
Yes.
that shows. Okay. Or we need to
Increase the
expand
time.
our time horizon, or we need to take significantly more risk than other people might in order to reach that time horizon. Okay. To reach the dollar amount is what I meant to say. So like realistically, let's say in $6 million, like when would be like the drop dead date that you would really like to have that Lamborghini, and and then like the other things that make up that other million. I don't know what all they are, but I'm assuming some level of food and clothing, and maybe you want to give a certain amount to something or whatever. So what kind of time frame?
Probably close to 9 or 10 years.
Okay, can we just put it at 10 for round numbers? I kind of
makes it, yep, nice and neat.
Okay, 10 years. Okay, now what we saw, if you gave yourself 10 years to hit $6 million, assuming our arguably conservative 70% APY, annual percentage yield, you would either need to contribute $389 a month, or you'd have to get up to an upfront investment, or a seed capital, as I call it, of $50,000. And even at that point, you still are over, you've contributed $2,500 too much a month, because you see this negative number here.
Yeah.
So in that case, we could probably cut this, say, I'm going to cut it way down to 15,000. We're still high. Let's cut it down to 10,000. Still high. Let's cut it down to 8,000. I didn't think it'd be that low. That's pretty good. 6,500. Look at that. 6,800. Oh, bother, Pooh Bear. Come on. 6,650. Boom. Okay. If of your $50,000 that you're going to generate for yourself through your job in the next 2 years, you would only need to put in $6,650, and then contribute $1 extra a month. Okay, so we could like make that 55, right? There you go, 6,655, and you would never ever have to contribute another penny over the next 10 years, and you would hit that $6 million mark. Okay, so to Craig's question, which I've taken the very long way around about it, is that, again, like how do I get the money in, so to speak, or how much money do I need in, so to speak, is whatever the seed capital is to hit your number in the time frame, assuming 70%. Now, if you're making, let's say 200%, like when you actually go back over the last 6 months of your portfolio, whatever that might be, and let's say the math shows you're actually doing 200%, you're doing significantly more than 70%. Well, you could put a lot less in, or typically what would happen at that point is you would, if you had like a monthly contribution you were doing, you would kind of scale that back, or you could reduce risk by, going to, I don't want to say other options, but just you could reduce risk by changing how you have your farms set up, so to speak. And that might be beyond where Craig is in the reading when I start talking about farms. But am I answering your question, Craig, or am I still missing it?
No, you are.
Yeah.
So
it's figuring out whatever seed capital you need, and whether you want to put that in monthly, or whether you want to put it in all at once, whatever, right? And then what time frame is acceptable? Like, let's say, Truit, that you're like, yeah, $6 million, but I want it in 5 years. Okay. Well, then, we might be at 25,000. Oh, we got to be a lot more than that. Yeah, significantly more than that, right? We've got to be, I don't know, let's say 100,000.
But this just shows the power of compounding over time.
Yes. Clarify that word just. Like, are you saying like that's all it's showing, or are you saying that like can you clarify that?
Yeah, I'm saying that we lower the time by half, but now we're having to input more than double to get our output.
Absolutely. So like most successful investors, and there's been research done by some of the big institutional firms like Fidelity and T. Rowe Price and all those, that the people that are most successful in investing are those that have died or forgotten that they even invested in something, and so that is the power of compounding over time. And another tool that I like to use is the calculator site.com. And I like this because it shows you monthly. So again, I'm just going to pick a round number. It can be whatever. Is that 10 million? No, that's 10 million. Okay. And let's say 70% a year. We're going to put it in there for 10 years. We're not going to add anything extra. Calculate. Oh, that's not the right. 70% a year, 10 years, include weekends, yes. What did I do wrong here? Percent profit. Daily interest. Did I do the wrong tool? Sorry, did the wrong tool. That's why. That was saying 70% daily, I think. Okay, let's try this now. And we want 10 years, right? There we go. It's still showing a higher APY than I want, but you can see here even that, oh, that's why, sorry. It's saying initial balance. I'm a dodo. It's saying I put 10 million in. That's
at the start, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I got to read, Okay, so let's say that we put in 25,000, right? That's too many. There we go. 25,000. Now we're going to calculate. There we go. It still should not be 97%. It should be yearly. Yeah, I don't know why it's double adding a little bit more, but to your point, if we look at the yearly, your first year, you doubled your money essentially, but it's really at about that 6-month mark, and really month 7 where you really start to pick up momentum on that comp. I said month, I meant year is what I meant to say. Anyways, this might be why is the monthly. There we go. The monthly breakdown. That's what I was trying to kind of pull up, but you can see here that, it stays about the same, 4,000s and the 5,000s, then you're in the 10,000s, and it's year 4 that each month now you start adding thousands of dollars, $1,000 or more dollars. And then really that 5th, 6th year down here at 81. And then that 7th year, you're starting to add $9,000 to $10,000 a month just in that compound interest. And so that's a tool that I like to play with, but also just kind of helps put things in perspective, because those with that put time and randomness on their side are the ones that really win long term. And then what ends up happening is that because time and randomness and the price of assets appreciate over time in most fields, but in this particular field, you end up with collapsing time just by default. Instead of it taking 10 years, you might be looking at only 7 or 8 years because the price of that asset appreciated or whatever as well. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay,
yeah,
Craig. So I don't want to beat a dead horse or take us off what you were trying to ask. So
no. So I mean, it was okay. So we invest our 10, say 10,000.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah, and so it's going to compound or increase at the rate you just showed. And then physically, like you said, you don't want to kill the goose. So
Yep.
you need to keep your base always alive. So it keeps
correct.
expanding.
So, yeah.
And I think you gave 3 models. One was you take the base away and the goose dies. The next was take away some, but leave for us to grow.
Yeah.
And the third was just let it all ride.
Yes. So, yeah. So let me try to, do you know what page he's talking about there? Truit, I think it's towards the end.
30.
I think it's like 34-ish.
Yeah, maybe 34.
Path 2, path 3. Yeah. I've got it right here. So let me pull this up so that people watching this knows what we're talking about. Okay, so right here, correct? Page 29.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So let's just back up a sentence or two. In fact, actually, let's just come here because this is really, can you see this okay? Or do I need to zoom in?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit for my own sanity here. Okay, so our base case is the guard BUSD liquidity pair. Okay, now the way decentralized finance, well, the way any finance works, whether it's centralized or decentralized, is that whoever holds those two pairs, a third party then can come in and transact one or both of those in order to make an exchange. So think about if you go to your bank, or if you were to go to a friend or whatever, and you're like, hey, I have US dollars, I'm going to be traveling to Canada. Do you have any Canadian dollars? Well, in order for the bank or that person to facilitate that transaction, that swap, they have to hold both US dollars and Canadian. They wouldn't have to have Canadian. I'm sorry, they wouldn't have to have US dollars, because you in theory would be, or in actuality would be supplying that. They would just have to be willing to swap, one asset for another, so to speak. But when we start to get at scale, like that works if you needed like maybe $1,000 Canadian, right? But your friend probably doesn't have 10, 20, 30, $100,000 worth of Canadian sitting at home. He probably doesn't even have 100,000 US fiat, if they're smart. So you're going to have to go to a bank, an institution, to facilitate that transaction. And so you have to have a liquidity pair. You have to have that facility or that institution has to have those two currencies available for you to exchange between. A little bit better example would be, you have, maybe they have US, Canadian, and they have US fiat, they have a Canadian dollar, and you only have Japanese yen. Well, then there has to be somebody that facilitates that yen to either US dollar or yen to the Canadian for that transaction to happen. And so that's where the liquidity pairs come in. So it's the same thing on the decentralized finance side. And the reason we use guard BUSD is a stable coin. So it's pegged to the US dollar. You might have heard recently in the news or things you've read about Terra Luna and kind of that plummeting and their stable coin UST going to the core of the earth. It got unpegged from the US dollar. The reason it got unpegged is because it was an algorithmically stable coin that it required another asset, Terra Luna, which was backed by Bitcoin. Okay. So without getting into how the manipulation happened, basically the collateralization for the stable coin was another asset that was also affected. And so when that asset was affected negatively, the stability of the UST dropped as well, and it became unpegged. Well, if you have other stable coins like BUSD or USDC, those are actually pegged to the actual US dollar and backed by actual paper, physical currency, which again, arguably is only as good as the faith and guarantee of the United States government. So take that for what it's worth. So it's not impervious to inflation and deflationary action, but it is removed from the market dynamics. So like, let me see here. Like right now, so BUSD is the stable coin of the Binance Smart Chain, okay? And I'm looking here at Binance coin, which BNB compared to the US dollar, okay? This is daily. Let me just, here we go, daily. Let me go to like a month, right? That's not gonna tell me what I want. A week. Okay, so we're looking at weekly highs and lows here over the course of the last year or so for the BNB. It's not a stable coin. You can see, you know, it was down here all the way at less than, you know, $150, went all the way up here to $170, back down to 300, back up to 660, back down to where it is now at about $300 again. And the other day it went as low as 207, you know, had a wick down on the week. And so this obviously has a lot of volatility in it, similar to Bitcoin. Okay, so there's a lot of volatility as we see here in Bitcoin. Well, by pairing with a stable coin, you're not going to have that volatility. So let's just, I don't even know if BUSD is on here because I don't ever look it up. BUSD, USD, there we go. And let's just look at the daily. Well, what do we see? It's pegged to $1, right? It's 100%, near 100% stable. Like it'll go fractions of a penny above or below. Yeah. And so when we get into like the Guard BUSD pair, right here, oops, I didn't want to highlight, but just right here in the center, the Guard BUSD pair, you're removing the market volatility of Bitcoin and BNB and all these other tokens that are fluctuating highs and lows every single day. And so you're removing 50% of the volatility essentially. So that's really the power of the base case. And I would argue kind of the genius behind it is that the token itself, Guard, is a limited supply token, much like Bitcoin. And the ecosystem is engineered to support the price of Guard so that essentially every single day there's micro transactions pushing the price of Guard higher, not artificially, but like because you and I are trading it or other people are trading it or whatever. And so it has become a true treasury asset, a macro belief for other people, much like Bitcoin might have been or is for many, many people, much like gold and silver are for some people. And so what you have then is in this liquidity pair is you have the price of Guard constantly raising. And what happens then is there has to be an equal number of dollar value within a liquidity pair so that it can facilitate every transaction. The token count might change based on price of the individual tokens, but because BUSD is always pegged to $1, what happens then is Guard is, you know, over time is consistently rising, and your BUSD, your stablecoin dollar amount, also has to rise with it, if that makes sense. And so that's what we really call that golden goose. And so getting back to your question about, you know, what are the different options available to us? Well, you know, option one, path one in no particular order is grow your golden goose. You just continually put money into the Guard BUSD until you reach whatever your capital number is, right? If it's 100,000, if it's 2,000, whatever you need that the math says to reach what you want in life, okay? And then, where was I here? Oh, back here. And then that's going to yield golden eggs, right? So I talked about the liquidity. You can just have that doing nothing, and it's going to earn trading fees over time. But the power of the farm is that Guard BUSD is then spitting out night tokens. And that's the golden eggs, because, the term I use in financial terms is a buying power asset, because I can then take that night and I can stake it for third-party tokens some of which I may want to hold and acquire other assets, or maybe I want to sell off and because I got a payment for my Lamborghini coming up for Truit or whatever, or, Truit's like, yeah, I can't afford the Lamborghini yet, but I want to eat this week or whatever the case may be, right? You can put it in a pool, which, they moved the night pool over here. The night, you could stake night and actually earn more night. And people might be thinking, well, why would I want to do that? Well, if you think about like real estate, after you've paid down so much of your mortgage on your rental properties or even your primary residence, some people will take and get a home equity line of credit and then take that and invest that in another property that then produces, rent that out, produce cash flow, that sort of stuff. Does that make sense to you, Truit? Are you familiar with that idea of having rental properties?
I'm not super familiar, but
you've heard of it, right? Like,
yes.
Some people, you maybe have friends that don't own their home, they rent it, or you guys have vacationed and you've stayed at an Airbnb or a vacation rental by owner or something like that. Same concept. There's an asset that is producing more cash, so to speak. So imagine that asset, that house, as your golden goose, okay? But instead of printing cash, or I should say in addition to printing cash, it actually every month, every week, year, every second of the day increases its square footage. So now your golden goose all on its own is getting fatter every single day because of the trading fees and stuff that it's earning. And then it's printing out that cash flow in the terms of the night tokens. And so that's what we see here, is that it's producing a secondary asset. It yields something else. And then that thing that it yields can go and get me something else. I can stake that, I can borrow against it. Like if you have a house rental, you're producing cash, but you can put the cash in the savings account and you can kind of sort of borrow against it, but you're not going to be able to borrow 100% of it. It's kind of like, that's kind of a foolish, the thing would be to go and acquire another asset with it. So the night tokens that you're earning through the Guard BUSD is in fact a whole separate asset in and of itself that you could sell for cash, or you could stake that and earn something else. So, so that's really these first two pieces of growing your golden goose. You can just add to it. It yields golden eggs, and then you can sell those golden eggs for your macro beliefs, right? So like I showed over here, you could stake it into, whatever, the Libero pool. And like I could care less about Libero. Like you wouldn't want to do that one because it has a pretty high tax. So that's probably a bad example. But even right here, you could stake it for actual BUSD stablecoin at 49% APR, which is about 64% APY. So you mentioned compound interest earlier, Truit. One of the ways time is collapsed, is reduced, is because your yield is earning yield on top of itself. So you have 2 and 3 layers of yield that are happening, and it does take a little bit of time to get into that cycle, that flow, so to speak. Like unless I was going to fund those 2 or 3 layers all today, it wouldn't work. So what typically you would do is you would have your golden goose, and once you've reached your capital allocation number, you would say, okay, well, anything above and beyond that, I'm now going to go and put it towards this third-party asset or whatever, right? So maybe you have a belief in fiat, and so you're like, hey, I want to get more stable coin because I want to cash that out and go on a vacation. Or today, right now, we cannot yet efficiently purchase things with cryptocurrency. It can be done, but you can't go to the grocery stores and buy a banana with, Ethereum or Guardian or Bitcoin or even BUSD. Just can't do it. The cashier probably doesn't even know what those words are. So you still have to pay in fiat. You got to put your debit card in, and your bank has to have fiat sitting in it. And so you might have a belief in a stable coin so that you can easily do the math from $1 to $1 type thing. You may want to participate in, I want to get, where's my other diagram? the other pieces of the ecosystem with like Spartans, and I haven't added Forge on here, but there's a newer one since when I wrote this called Forge. And that actually supports the price of Guardian. So if your macro belief was in Guardian token as a treasury asset, well, you would want to do things within the ecosystem that helps support that price, so to speak. So, so getting back down here to Craig's question. So you could sell that egg for your macro belief. You could sell the egg and fatten your golden goose so that the next round of your golden eggs are a bit more. So that's what we were talking about there, Craig, where you could either put the night into the night pool and just earn more night, or you could, sell it off and split the difference and add more guard BUSD. And then there's an auto compounder that would do all that for you automatically if somebody wanted to actually do path 2. And then path 3 is you have your golden goose, guard BUSD, it emits golden eggs, which is the night token. You could stake it, just like I explained, not selling it for a tertiary asset that you don't care about. And then you can, sell those to fatten your goose, or actually go back to path 1 and acquire your paycheck or more of whatever you believe in, right? Does that kind of make sense? I know I answered them kind of all at once. That wasn't my intent, but it all starts with the guard BUSD, and then my personal approach. People can do whatever they want. My personal approach is my guard BUSD goes into the night auto compounder until I reach my upfront investment. Like because that locks in certainty, it locks in the guarantee that at 70% APY and however many years I have for my solvable problem, my number is guaranteed. And so that's what I personally do. And and then everything above and beyond that, I don't want to say becomes play money, but becomes money that I can now utilize, or not, I shouldn't say money because it's not money. It becomes assets that I can then utilize in the ecosystem for the raise or to help, participate with Forge, because that supports the price of my macro belief of Guardian or something like that.
Right.
So that was another long-winded answer, Craig. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm notorious for that.
So I'm always a cup half full kind of guy. So one of the things that you wrote, and I think I've read before, is, so say Guardian is just thriving. And it looked like there was a limit you mentioned, that it can't be the fund or the Guardian token can't be worth more than 65 million, and it's limited to 50,000 coins or something like that. What happens if it goes over that value?
You're kind of confusing a couple of things, but that's okay. So you have the Guardian token is max supply. Yeah, that's how you spell supply. Is 50 million tokens, okay? 50 million tokens. And then let's say that the current price is, what is it today? Let me refresh right this second. So that $7.65. Oh, well, right here, it shows it right here. Can you see okay on the right? No, I'm not sharing.
Yeah.
Oh, I am sharing.
Yeah. You got it.
On the right side of the screen, the current price is $7.65, which is the equivalent. That's the US dollar value, because it's paired. Its primary pair is the stable coin. This 765 BUSD is the same thing. The liquidity is $48 million, which let me see if this is showing the full thing. Market cap, market cap is 383 million. So if you go back to, your price of whatever, I don't remember, but 7.46, then you end up with your market cap, okay? And that is whatever, 383 million, right? 383 million. It's a dollar, should be in dollars there, because that's, this is equals, I can't do it because it's actually going to do a formula. But anyways, it's this times that, this times this equals market cap. Does that make sense what I'm trying to explain?
Yeah, totally.
So that's how you get to, right now it's a $383 million market cap. Okay. Now, this is what's really critical. And this is why Guard BUSD is so powerful. It's powerful because of the investors, the holders, the liquidity providers, me, you, Truit, whomever is involved in this. There's $48 million of liquidity on a $383 million market cap. When you look at a company as an investor and you were to Google whatever, Apple or whom Apple's a bad example because they have a ton of cash, but most companies, when you look at Google and say, you know, what's a safe or a good or a prudent liquidity ratio to a company's market cap, anything above 10% is like golden. It's like, wow, that's amazing. Well, what is 380 or 48 divided by 385? I'm probably going to do the math wrong. Equals 48 divided by 385. I probably have it reversed. No, I don't. 12%. So the Guard BUSD liquidity is 12%, 2.5% above what a great stellar company typically holds. You have outliers like Apple and Microsoft that are just have been around for 30 years and have so much liquidity in cash and everything because they charge us a lot for everything. But, you know, I have Apple products. I like it. So anyway, so that's kind of what you're seeing here. So the answer to your question, if I recall your question exactly, is that it has a max supply, a limited supply. Okay. And so this limited supply, the fact that the price is above $1, in the market cap, and more specifically, the ratio of the liquidity and the market cap really sets Guard up to be a treasury asset, something that is a great store of value because it's above $1. If it was below $1, well, which it was for a long period of time, you know, in crypto timeline, so to speak, it was, but then it would, you know, anything below $1, in particular, like institutions and things like that, it wouldn't really catch the eye of it because they, you have to remember or be aware that in crypto, you don't have 2 decimal places like you do with the US dollar value. You, in most cases, you have 18, some operate on 12, some change operate on 24, but most tokens have 18 decimals. Well, you know, you really can't take a project very serious with so many zeros in front of the actual real number. So that's one of the things that really the Guard BUSD, it's been engineered, it's been designed to be very, very stable in that respect. So if I don't answer your question with clarity, please let me know, Craig. And I'm trying to get more succinct in my answers.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Well, no, because you give more value than you know, just the question. So you explain the foundation of the question and then get the question answered. So it's all good.
Thanks. My wife hates that, but thanks.
Yeah, it's kind of like well, in some ways it's like our Bible studies. We used to call them the tangents because we get off on like 6 million tangents. That's not subject. So, but you're on. It was just the background and the foundation to what you're explaining. So
yeah, which is really important to know, right? Like otherwise you're just throwing wet spaghetti on the wall or throwing a dart with a blindfold on, like that's why so many people don't have the money that they actually want to have, is because they don't actually take the time to learn the habits, so to speak, the knowledge, the base level of knowledge to understand that centralized finance. Well, you know, the bank, okay, I deposit $100 into my savings account. Well, what's the first thing that happens? Well, the first thing that happens by regulation is that at a minimum, that $100 gets times 10, because every dollar is the US fiat is fractional currency, fractional reserve is what they call it. So the bank is allowed to legally, and some of the bigger ones are allowed up to even 15 times per every dollar. So that $100 I put in, they're loaning out to Truit to buy his Lamborghini at 10x, you know, and then paying me 0.00001, you know, a tenth of a percent, which I guess would be 100th of a percent of interest in my quote unquote savings account. It's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so, I'm grateful for decentralized finance and its innovation, its invent, so to speak. If you think about it, Bitcoin's 12 years old. So like it's been around for a while, but this idea of liquidity pools, and other than just buying Bitcoin and holding it and hoping and praying for 12 years, like this decentralized finance space is really within the last 3 to 5 years has really gotten a foundation. And then really I would argue that like we're right now at the beginning of getting a strong foundation for the majority of people to come in. And in the document, like a page 3 or 4, I think I show the technology innovation or adoption curve. And that's really important to be aware of. Like, I think it's the innovators are the first 2.5%. And when you realize there are only enough wallet addresses to cover, currently, there are only 1.5% of the population worth of wallet addresses. And you recognize that I have more than one wallet address. So I'm already cutting that down even further. And there's people with 20, 30, 40, 50 wallet addresses for various reasons, So,
Right.
Yeah. So cool. So what other questions do you have? Truit, you got any? Stephanie, Craig, I'm here for you. I got some time.
I think what I'm going to end up doing, if this is okay with you, is because I'm sure it's going to get more interesting and detailed as I read on. So I'd love a part 2.
Okay.
When I get the rest of it read.
Yeah.
And then I have a million questions or not, maybe not, maybe totally self-explanatory. So,
sure.
But anyway, yeah.
Sure. Truit, you have any questions, sir?
Okay, so in order to get Guardian, do you have to get BUSD and then convert and then find a Guardian BUSD pair and trade someone your BUSD to get Guardian?
The short answer is yes. That's a very good question. The longer answer is the way you're thinking about it is 100% accurate. The way you're thinking about it is not the most efficient path because a lot of those steps have been set up for you, if that makes sense, right?
Okay.
So
yes.
I'll share my screen again, and I will show you the example of NightSwap. And let's say that I want to go to exchange. Let me go back here. You can see my screen okay, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's white at the moment. As soon as it refreshes, here we go. Okay. You're seeing nans here because my wallet's not connected, but that's okay. Let me refresh because I want to show. There we go. Okay. So Guard BUSD is what we're interested in right here. Okay. Most DEXs, most decentralized exchanges are not built like this. The great ones are, and there's only a few great ones, and that's why we use NightSwap, okay? Not only do we use NightSwap because it's designed efficiently, arguably correctly, in my opinion, from a technology standpoint, and from a financial standpoint, I believe it's built correctly, but it's part of the ecosystem. Like the reason NightSwap exists is because the people that the Wolf Den was partnering with, the founder, Nick Peterson, the developer or the project owner is how he would be titled, of the Guard token. He had these other DEXs that he was working with back in the first few months of Guard's existence, and they kept reneging on their word and the various things that they wanted. And so in order for him to provide the stability that he designed the token for, and for him to be able to design the stability of the ecosystem that he wants to be able to attract institutions and I don't want to call them whales, but just larger players, as well as giving the common man, you and me, so to speak, that doesn't have tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars at this point in time. Sorry to disappoint anybody, I'm not quite there yet. So in order to do that, he said, okay, I have to design my own exchange. I have to design my own DEX. Okay. So whenever you're on a DEX, you're going to see these happen to have like a nice little color glow around them. They don't all have that, but you can see these orange little ovals up here. This one says 15x. The one in the middle says 60x. This says 45x. Those are multipliers. What they do is they can, so a DEX, I've got to take a step back on the education piece here. A DEX emits night tokens, okay? And tokens are emitted or minted every block, okay? On the Binance Smart Chain, a block currently takes about 3 seconds. On the Phantom blockchain, it's significantly faster. Doesn't take, so whereas on the Binance Smart Chain, which is what NightSwap is on, that is about 30,000 blocks a day. If you go to the Phantom side of NightSwap, which is called dark.nightswap, that has about 90 blocks a day because that chain is about 3 times faster. What does that mean? Well, whenever you go to the store to buy your banana and you use your debit card, Visa has so many transactions it can process a second, okay? That's kind of the equivalent of a block, okay? Except that instead of processing transactions, it's actually emitting the golden eggs. Does that make sense following our analogy? So with these numbers up here, 45, 60, 15, those are kind of signals. On the blockchain, they actually tell this DEX to prioritize emission. So it's like all done in ratios. There's only 10 night tokens emitted a second. And this one is going to be weighted 60%. This one's going to be weighted 45%. This one's going to be weighted 15%. So of those 10, they all get divvied up all around to the various farms or liquidity pools in this case. So when you look at a DEX, you can go, oh, what are the important pairs? What are the pairs that are providing utility to that DEX? The DEX could not operate without them as efficiently as it should. Well, you look at the ones that are typically towards the top of their listings, but more noticeably are the ones that have these multipliers. So because there is a BNB BUSD liquidity pair, this goes back to like our Japanese yen versus Canadian versus US dollar example we talked about at the beginning. Because BNB BUSD exists, I can actually swap any token directly into guard BUSD, because the guard BUSD pair would route from BNB. Let's say I had BNB, which I'll show you in just a second. Let's say I had BNB. Well, it would go BNB to the BUSD pair, this farm, and then it would route over here to the BUSD, and that's how I would actually get my guard. So kind of what you were talking about, Truit, there is a path that has to happen, and that path is facilitated by the liquidity providers. In this case, you and me and anybody else that has assets sitting in these particular farms. Does that make sense? Yes. So another utility farm is the Night BNB and the Night BUSD, because there is a auto compounding feature inside of Night, meaning I don't have to manually harvest, sell my Night, and then go and manually repair. I don't have to do these 5 or 6 steps myself. I can put it into the auto compounder version. Well, it's routing those. When I get earn Night for free, it's routing it through the Night to BUSD, and then it's going to go and buy half of it BUSD and half of it guard. If Night BUSD did not exist and only Night BNB existed, it would have to take an extra hop, an extra step, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now I can go and show you here. What did you want to swap for, Truit?
It was BUSD to guard.
Okay, BUSD to guard. So I have BUSD, and we're going to assume I have BUSD, and I want to buy guard. I have to know how to spell it first. I gotta unlock my wallet. I'm not logged into my wallet, and I have about 3 steps to make that happen. But anyways, right down here at the bottom would be a route. It would tell you BUSD straight to guard, because that's only 1 step. But again, if let's say I had BNB, then maybe if I put 1, no, it doesn't. Let's say I had, this is a bad example, but let's try this one. There we go. Here, it's showing it. That's good. Okay, so let's say I had the DEP token, the DEP token, okay? And I wanted to go to guard. What's telling me my route right here is that DEP is going to be sold for BNB, and then that BNB is going to go straight into the guard. And again, because there's the guard BUSD and the BNB BUSD, it can kind of skip that step. But if we go back to farms, you're going to see DEP. There's there we go, right there. DEP-BNB. That's the pair. It's going to start there, route up here, and then go to this guard BUSD. That's what it's showing there. Does that make sense? So, yeah. What other questions you got, Truit?
So if I wanted to try and start this within the next potentially week or so, how would I go about doing that?
Good question. I do outline that in no, I don't want to restart. Let me find it here. It's in here somewhere. So let me.
Maybe what next?
Yeah, I think it might be, yeah, the what next. Let me go there. So let's start there. What next? Choices, you can do nothing. Nope, that's not it. Basically, it's liquidity. Okay, so yeah, this is, I think I covered this 2 or 3 times in here. This is just kind of the quick one right here. You would buy guard and BUSD, and then you make the guard BUSD liquidity pair on night swap. Okay, I'm skipping a step at the beginning. That's kind of intentional, but we just talked about, right? Like if you had BNB or BUSD, you would have to buy guard, and then you would have to buy, let's say you had BNB, then you would also buy BUSD in a 50-50 ratio of dollar amount, right? Does that make sense so far? So because you're going to add liquidity. So let's say I wanted to add BUSD and guard. And let's say I had whatever, $100 of BUSD. Well, or I wanted to put $100 of BUSD, but I was starting with like BNB, for example. Then you just have to know that you're going to have to end up with like 12.96. So like what I typically do is I come over here to swap and I go, okay, I have BNB, and then go in here and I just paste that number back in the swap field, and it's going to take however much of my BNB. I'm assuming I have, more than, essentially I'm going to have $200 worth, right? Because in my liquidity, I was going to add $100 of BNB, but there's 2 sides. It's got to be equal dollar amount. So it's going to have $100 worth of guard, but because guard is at $7.46, that's only the 12 tokens, right? It's not 1 for 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is, I believe it's in here somewhere. Truit, I don't know why it's not coming up. The short answer, what you're actually asking is like, what's the on-ramp? Okay. So that's a good place for me to like plug / segue to, like, when this first started out, I was just helping people through text message and email and phone calls and Zooms and stuff like this get started. And then the Wolf Den, the concept, the strategies, a lot of it are coming from that. I'm in one of the top tiers of that. It's not a cheap investment. And a lot of the people in there, while they, a lot of them are a little rough around the edges, so to speak, right? And I wouldn't be comfortable like having a father and a son like me say, hey, Craig, go join the Wolf Den with your son Truit, without you being there to be a filter for him, right? Like now Truit obviously is 16, almost arguably an adult legally. So I hope that he's mature enough to discern, how to talk to people and, all that sort of stuff. But part of the diffusion of innovation, part of technology diffusion is transposing ideas across different audiences, so to speak. And so that's kind of where I've taken it upon myself to carry the baton for Christians and say, hey, look, here's the concept that is taught inside the Wolf Den. Here are all the pieces of the puzzle you need to know to make that happen. And you are free to go do that. You don't have to pay anybody any money to do that or whatever. But there are some people that want to have a little bit of hand holding or more step-by-step. They want all the nuances explained. They want community, things of that nature. So what I've decided to do, because I have quite a few people asking for it now, is to create a private Discord community. And the way that I'm handling that is I'm saying, look, it's $100 donation per person, suggested donation per person to Kingdom Treasury. And just like I have my own personal wallets, Kingdom Treasury, which is a private foundation that's in the formation process, has its own wallets. And so I'm basically running this base case concept and some more advanced strategies that I'm aware of inside or for Kingdom Treasury in order to be able to donate to smaller ministry organizations, et cetera. Okay. So like the step-by-step videos, all that stuff, I've actually outlined it over here, and building that out inside the Discord right now. Because I couldn't quickly find it in here, I know I put it in here, but one on-ramp is crypto.com. That's currently my preferred on-ramp. And then another one is Coinbase, another one's KuCoin. Those are all centralized exchanges. And me personally, other people can do what they want, but most people in the DeFi space will tell you this, like only use the centralized exchange for on and off ramp. The reason being is because banks play nice with them. Why? Because they're all regulated right now, right? So I only use crypto.com for getting fiat into cryptocurrency. And I only use it, I haven't done this, but I will only use it to pull fiat back out, right? So when I reach my solvable problem and I want to acquire that Lamborghini or make that donation to a particular ministry or whatever the case may be, then I will, I will sell off some assets, or I'll sell the yield from one of my secondary or tertiary assets, convert that into fiat, and then crypto.com's connected to my bank. Okay. A little more to the point, Truit asked about, converting BUSD to GARD. You can absolutely do BUSD to GARD, because even if those farms didn't exist like they did, you could ultimately do it, because there'd be some path somewhere. It just might be 20 steps instead of 2 or 3. But what I recommend people to do is I recommend to start with BNB. The reason being is because you're on the Binance Smart Chain and you need gas money. Okay. Every transaction is going to cost you, 10, 15, 20 cents worth of BNB. Okay. So in crypto.com, I can buy BUSD, but it's actually cheaper to transfer out. The gas fee and the profit that crypto.com is going to charge you for their wallet, so to speak, is cheaper to do BNB versus BUSD, but you could totally do BUSD. Okay. So now for Truit, do you have a bank account? You're 16. Do you have your own personal bank account or joint account with your parents?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like on crypto.com, you would, download the app, you would connect your debit card, or you can do an ACH transfer. If you were going to do a larger sum of money, you might do a wire transfer, because it would be cheaper comparatively to move a large amount of money through wire and or faster. Okay. With crypto.com, they give you the first 30 days free of no debit card processing fee. After 30 days, they charge you an additional 2.99%. Okay. And then you would buy the BNB. Ultimately, you're going to have to connect an external wallet, your MetaMask wallet. And that's one thing I don't know that I got into detail on, was talking about MetaMask. I think I showed it in some of the videos, but I didn't say like, go download MetaMask or whatever. But that's where inside the Kingdom Treasury community, I have like, here's how to download MetaMask. Here's the settings you want from MetaMask for security purposes, all that kind of stuff. I have that in there. Otherwise, like, honestly, you have enough information now to go tackle it on your own, so to speak. But the short, long-winded answer is crypto.com is the onboard central exchange that I personally prefer. There's like 4 or 5 steps to make that happen. And it takes a minimum of 24 hours initially, because once you add an external wallet, they have a security feature that you have to wait 24 hours before you can transfer anything out. I guess their assumption is that if you were kidnapped, that the kidnapper will keep you alive for 24 hours or decide it's not worth it, I guess. I don't know what their logic is there, but so yeah. Again, I'm long-winded. I got to get better at that. Truit, did I answer your question or no?
No, you answered it.
Okay. Next time you probably say like, dude, stop talking. You're good. So it's cool.
So that's interesting because, I mean, he has some mutual funds that he's invested in. And technically, but he's not 18 yet. So
Correct.
We have to be
you have a custodian account. Yeah.
Is that not true with crypto coins? That you can be under 18 and participate? Or
the short answer is yes.
Yeah, cool.
Because anybody can own a wallet, and nobody knows who owns that wallet. It's completely transparent yet completely anonymous. Like, that's the beauty of the blockchain. And so centralized exchanges, now you have to know your customer. And so crypto.com, because he's not 18, I don't know that he himself could have a crypto.com account. I don't know that he can. He can try to create it and see if it gives him an error out message. In that case, he may need to have, you may have to create the crypto.com account for him, but his external wallet could be connected to it. They don't know who's, you can connect any external wallet to it. And by external wallet, I'm talking about the string of numbers that represent.
This makes me realize why I think the current administration is trying to have access to current bank exchanges.
Sure.
Because it sounds like you have this connected, your wallet's connected to your bank account. So when you withdraw, so to speak, that's income.
Yeah.
That may not show up to the IRS.
Sure. Sure. Why wouldn't they want to track it and tax it and do whatever?
They're centralized. They want to know everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So
and we want to be decentralized so that they don't know squat.
Yeah. It's the adage of how you set up a not that I'm not qualified to give legal or financial advice, but the reason trusts exist and are so powerful is they allow people, especially people with significant wealth, to control everything but own absolutely nothing. Right. And when you can get, like I've looked at it, you got to have, again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial planner. Right. I would recommend, like, for myself, well, I want to say for myself. Anyway, I'm not going to answer that. But yeah, you need to have, you could do it with $10,000. You could set up a trust, but it's not really, not worth it at that point, So you need to have some level of wealth, some amount of assets that you want to control and protect. I think once you start getting into the low to mid 6 figures is where it really starts to warrant it, in my opinion. Certainly if somebody's sitting on 7 or 8 figures of assets of wealth, then yeah, they're going to, I mean, if they don't, let me know who they are. I'd like to help them out, as I incriminate myself. But anyways,
it's important to protect, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it sounds like stock and bonds and those things all have a basis, right? So
and cryptocurrency is taxed. It's taxed right now as property. So you're going to have short-term gains and long-term gains. So for Truit, if you're not familiar, when you go to file your taxes, and you start getting to your assets and your cash flow and that sort of stuff, if you sell an asset before 365 days. So if you sell it at 365 days or less, it's taxed at your income bracket, which for somebody that makes, 80, 90, 150,000, 250,000, they're going to be in the 30 to 40% tax bracket plus higher end state tax brackets, depending on where they live. But if I sell that asset on day 366, then I'm taxed only at 15% capital gain. So I could be going from 30 or 35% tax on that, selling that asset, to 15%. So that's one reason I believe people that flip houses, they don't survive very long, because they get hit with those astronomical tax bills at the end of the year, as opposed to the people that set it and forget it, that just buy the asset and rent it out and kind of forget they even own it, type thing.
Right.
So yeah. So that obviously gets into the tax wormhole and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, centralized exchanges, like there are ways to 100% decentralize, get money on and off. But unless you're trying to avoid taxation, or which I don't recommend and I don't do, I believe in paying the least amount of taxes as I'm legally required to.
Right.
There are a few countries where cryptocurrency and that sort of stuff is still illegal, or, has significant barriers to entry. So there are some decentralized exchanges where I could literally go, it's like peer to peer, in order to get money onboarded. That is pretty risky. It's because I don't know that I'm dealing with Craig. I'm dealing with who knows from where. And I mean,
Right.
Sure, I'll risk $100, but I'm not going to exchange 1,000 or more on there. I'm just not going to take that risk.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
So yeah. And I can think the last little bit to wrap up that segment is that regulation, like there's already some regulations in place. And to your point about what the current administration is doing, is to regulate it even further, which is needed, because I'll just share my screen real quick here. Yes, share that one. If we go back to this, there's a chasm right here on the technology adoption curve. What has to happen in order to get over here to the early majority of people adopting it, it being any technology, one of the pieces is regulation, in particular for institutions, because institutions have a fiscal responsibility to return profit to their shareholders, and that the governments and the powers that be giving their blessing or their guidelines and boundaries for an institution to be able to invest in a certain asset class, that gives them the legal protection, so to speak, that they need, and the vote of confidence and this peace of mind that if I do this, I'm not putting my shareholders at risk, so to speak. And there's like about 7 things that have to fill in this chasm here in order to make that happen. The last 2 is institutional. Now I'm forgetting. Institutional codification, so like their policies and procedures and that, and then institutional adoption. I could pull it up if we wanted to, but I don't want to answer a long-winded question. I don't want to answer long-windedly. So yeah.
Cool.
So cool. What else, guys? Anything else?
Do you have any more questions?
No, I think I'm okay. How about you?
So once you get your Guardian,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a liquidity pool and there's a normal Guardian. What's like the main difference?
So Guardian is a token, and
Yeah.
whenever you pair Guardian with another token, it creates liquidity. Okay. Guardian is designed, the liquidity pair for Guardian is designed to be Guard BUSD. Now, anybody could pair Guard with BNB, or Guard with Cake, or Guard with Ethereum, or whatever. But you're probably going to end up with a warning that says you're the first person to provide liquidity for this on that particular exchange that you're using, which should be a major red flag, because you don't ever want to be the first person providing liquidity unless you know what you're doing. I actually have a friend of mine that has launched a DEX on another chain, and I helped provide that initial liquidity for him in the testing phases of it. And when it came to make some changes on the DEX, I had to remove my liquidity, and it was a pain in the butt to add the liquidity, and it was a pain in the butt to remove it. So, for what we're talking about here, Guard BUSD, is what you're going to use. That's going to create a liquidity pool. Okay. That goes back to the golden goose. Arguably, I should probably just keep sharing my screen, huh? Okay. Arguably, the guard BUSD right here, the golden goose, arguably could just be guard BUSD liquidity pair. And that goes into the pool, which is on the blockchain, but most DEXs do not these days. Some still have them, but 90+% of them don't. We've moved on to where smart contracts and these DEXs are more sophisticated to where we can now be rewarded further for providing that liquidity. So at that point, I would drop it in the farm, which is what I showed you earlier, the guard BUSD LP on the screen. It was kind of in the middle there. And that's going to emit that night token, which is that secondary buying power asset that you're earning. So you could have it just sit in the liquidity pool behind the scenes of the blockchain, and you're just collecting trading fees and appreciation of the tokens, or you could put it in a farm, earn all that plus this other asset. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. I don't want to have to connect my iPad and draw it all out, but hopefully it made sense. So yeah. So liquidity pair, it's automatically in the pool. Once you pair it, then I recommend, and really what is the base case, is to drop it into the farm that earns you night. And then you could, if you're not initially funding, like fully funding your core capital, I would put it in an auto compounder, especially, especially if you're doing less than $1,000 or whatever. That gets into a whole nother thing, which I cover in the document about, like, there was a triangle on there and the bottom was enough. And then the next one was balance. And the next one up was structure, and then novelty and complexity. Do you remember that vaguely? Yes. Okay. So that gets into balance and structure. Like how many buttons do you want to be pushing a day or a week or a month? That may be totally different than your dad. It may be totally different than me, right? Like I like pushing buttons. I'm a recovering button pusher. Okay. So, I don't have very many things inside of an auto compounder. I have a few things, but not very much. Also, part of my macro belief is that I want to acquire as many night tokens and dark night tokens as I can. Why? Because they are buying power asset. They're golden eggs that are going to produce other golden geese. So I personally don't like to sell them. That also means I have to have a longer time horizon, which I do. If their solvable problem is 2 or 3 years, they may need to sell all of their night tokens and repair them or put them in the auto compounder so it does it automatically, so that they can be a little bit more in control of time, if that makes sense. But for me personally, I don't like to sell that secondary asset because it will get me everything else I want in time for free. So I get excited about it. Like, why on earth would I sell something that I can give me everything else I want for free, even if that thing itself goes to zero? It just doesn't make sense to me. So anyways, but that's me. That's my belief. What else, Truit? You good?
I think I'm good.
Okay. So Dad wants to have a part 2 at some point, which is fine. So you guys just, let me know, text me or whatever. And then if you guys, like, I know Truit has some specific questions about like how to actually do the crypto.com and all that, because I don't have it built into Discord right now. I have it in a Google Doc. If you guys want to be a part of that community, it's no pressure. I don't make a single dime off of it. It literally goes straight into the asset base of Kingdom Treasury. That is, once it gets to its kind of automated amount, so to speak, we'll start kicking out rewards to ministries. So if you guys want to do that, and I'd be more than willing to share that document with you. Like I said, it's a suggested donation of $100 per person. Just in case anybody else is watching, I'll share my screen one more time. But people can either donate crypto, which I really wouldn't recommend for 99% of people, or they can do fiat. And if you just kind of scroll down on the website, I have a give, send, go embedded, and people can donate, through their bank account or whatever, fiat, just like you normally would. Or if they wanted to donate crypto once they're onboarded and everything, that's fine too. And then as soon as I get the Discord up, which I told somebody else like 3 weeks ago, it'd be about a week, but that was before I realized how labor intensive it was. So I kind of shot myself in the foot. But another week or two here, I should have the Discord up how I want it. And then all this stuff that I would give you access to through a Google Doc right now will be all nice and pretty inside of the Discord. So
cool.
Yeah. So again, no obligation, no pressure. Otherwise, you guys do have all the info you need from that primary Google Doc that I provided to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
well, I appreciate you.
Caveat I will say is that for you guys or anybody else starting out, like start with like a few small transactions. Like for example, let's say Truit's like, I want to put $1,000 in, or I want to put $500 in. Start with $20 and just go through the steps. Like go through the steps 3 or 4 times with $20 until you're comfortable, because you don't want to put, say, okay, I'm going to do $1,000 and then realize that you accidentally sent it to, to somebody else's wallet that you have no idea whose it is. And now it's out in cyberspace somewhere and you've lost it, So that's again, where like, if I go to the bank, I have very, very little risk that the money I put into my savings account is going to end up in Craig's savings account, because the bank they're regulated. They've all figured that out. It's insured by the FDIC. But in the decentralized world, it is upon us, we the people, the individuals, to take responsibility for what we are doing with our money. And so slow down, small baby steps, so to speak. So
yeah, sounds good. Sounds
cool.
like fun. Yeah.
Alrighty. Great. So you guys just let me know when you want to get together for round 2 in the next week or so, and we can have at it. Okay.
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 Thanks, Jason.
Cool. Alrighty. Bye-bye, guys.
Yeah. God bless.
Alrighty. God bless you too.